But actually, I forgot to tell you, we were talking about like our first week, what people had to say. Well, the WNBA fined me for
No! You got fined for episode 1?
Dude, they fined me.
Every time Sophie Cunningham speaks her mind, she gets slapped with another fine. Not for trash-talking opponents, not for breaking rules on the court, but for doing the one thing the WNBA can't seem to handle, telling the truth. And this season, speaking that truth has already cost her almost $3,000. It started with what looked like nothing, a TikTok. She was lip-syncing to Sabrina Carpenter's Man-Child, a lighthearted moment you'd expect from any athlete's social feed.
They fined her again. Sophie Cunningham has now been fined 4 times this season. She's had 4 separate fines this season. And she got fined for comments on a podcast episode about referees. And it wasn't even like it was that bad.
But somehow the WNBA decided this counted as criticizing referees. That cost her $500, a pricey lesson in just how thin-skinned league management can be. But that was only the beginning. The real fireworks came during an ugly clash between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. Caitlin Clark, the hottest name in women's basketball, the player selling out arenas everywhere, took an eye poke from Uhash Sheldon, immediately followed by a hard shove from Marina Mabrey. Sophie didn't think. She reacted. Charging in, she delivered her own hard foul, the kind of message-sent play you see in every sport when teammates protect each other. Fans saw pure loyalty. The league saw a problem. $900 gone, just for standing up for her teammate and the league's biggest draw. Then came the moment that would turn Sophie from scrappy role player into the most unfiltered voice in the WNBA.
They didn't like you then. They sure aren't going to like you now. Sophie Cunningham has been making waves with the new podcast that she is now featured in, courtesy of The Volume. Sophie Cunningham letting it all out and not holding back one.
On Show Me Something, her new podcast with The Volume, she started by giving referees credit, straight up saying their job is hard and admitting she wouldn't be perfect with a whistle either. But then she pointed out what fans and players have been grumbling about all season. The calls are inconsistent. The obvious fouls are sometimes ignored. The easy ones get blown. This wasn't profanity. It wasn't an attack. It was common sense. And for that, the WNBA hit her with a $1,500 fine. Let that sink in. Actual physical cheap shots against Caitlin Clark drew lighter initial punishment, but calmly talking about officiating consistency cost Sophie the largest fine of her career. If that doesn't scream hypocrisy, what does? It's the classic don't attack the system no matter how broken it is mentality, and Sophie just refuses to play along. But here's what the suits in the WNBA offices don't seem to get. Every single fine they drop on Sophie makes her bigger. When the season tipped off, she had about 350,000 followers across her socials. Now, over 1.6 million. That TikTok they tried to punish pulled 1.3 million views. The clip of her defending Clark turned her into a folk hero among the Caitlin Clark faithful. And that podcast moment the league thought would tarnish her? It's viral, being shared on Reddit threads, basketball podcasts, and even ESPN talk segments. Sophie has basically pulled a Draymond Green, taking every controversy and flipping it into brand equity. Controversy is her currency, and the WNBA's fines are practically writing her checks in attention, influence, and credibility. And she's doing it without faking it. Sophie's authenticity is the point. She's not
Pulls me aside and she goes, "Come here, Soph, I have to talk to you." And this was in like front of everybody. And I was like, "What did I do now?" And she just smiled and she goes, "Hey, they're gonna fine you again." They're like, I even told them, I even credited them that their job was hard. I did say that, and I said that I would.
No,
This is what separates Sophie from the average player. She's not terrified of acknowledging reality. She says flat out that Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA, and she's baffled that anyone denies it. To her, it's not opinion, it's math. Ticket sales, TV ratings, merchandise numbers, social trends, Clark dominates all of them. Sophie's even compared her popularity to the kind of once-in-a-generation stardom you see in men's sports, pointing out that NFL superstar Travis Kelce showed up in Iowa City just to watch Clark's college games. That's not just a hot streak. That's cultural relevance. which is exactly why Sophie's furious at the way Clark's been treated. Why, she asks, would you allow the object of every new fan's attention to get hacked, shoved, and poked game after game without protection? Not only is it unfair, it's financially insane. You don't let the one player...
6 years of anonymity, Sophie Cunningham has suddenly become a superstar this season. Why? How did she accomplish the previously unachievable? How did she become a star in a league that seems to be allergic to star power? To her credit, Sophie Cunningham used her brain. She noticed that the path to stardom had already been cleared for her. She emulated the strategy that was utilized by Draymond Green.
They're attracting casual audiences become a weekly injury risk. Yet officials stand by, and when Sophie raises it publicly, she's the one punished. What does that do to a locker room? According to Sophie, when she gets news of a fine, her teammates hardly even react anymore. Not because it's no big deal, but because they expect it. They're scared. Not scared of Sophie, but of being associated with her. Because in today's WNBA, even standing too close to someone speaking her mind could put a target on your back. That's not a healthy workplace. That's a culture of fear, and that fear radiates beyond the players. Coaches whisper it. Media members dance around it. Everyone knows officiating has been a mess this year. Everyone knows Clark's taking unfair punishment on the court. But Sophie's the one who dares to say it on the record. And once she does, major outlets can piggyback without taking the initial heat. ESPN commentators are now nodding to the idea that Clark's catching extra contact and that officiating standards are slipping. Sophie moved the Overton window of what people can openly discuss. This is the dangerous part for the league office. Sophie's not just challenging them. She's proving that unfiltered...
Seen players in our league try to toughen up Caitlin. I know the talks that Phoenix had in the locker room of no, we're gonna prove her, we're gonna show her what the W really is. I'm what are people doing? It's just too much.
Finally, someone who gets it. Finally, someone in the WNBA who understands this thing called business.
Honesty resonates more than any polished marketing campaign. Fans don't tweet about sanitized post-game interviews. They don't share the cookie-cutter, we gave it our all out there answers. But they do clip Sophie's rants, repost them, and flood her comments with support. And here's where the league's strategy becomes almost comedic. Finding her is supposed to be deterrence. Instead, it's free advertising for her brand. It's the Streisand effect in basketball shorts. Every time they try to make her message disappear, they ensure 10 times more people hear it. She's using the momentum perfectly. Every fine is a news story. Every punishment is proof for her audience that she's telling truths they don't want you to hear. Instead of being silenced, she looks fearless. Instead of losing support, she gains it. And while Kathy Engelbert's name trends for all the wrong reasons, Sophie's trends for being the W's most unfiltered star. Here's the part that must sting in the commissioner's office.
Is it uncommon for coaches or players to get fined in a professional league when talking about officiating? No, that's not uncommon. However, when your league is looking worse than the NFL on officiating, you know what you might ought to do? Sit down in the corner and shut the bleep up. And maybe you ought not be fining your players over it because you're officiating.
Sophie is doing their job better than them. She's bringing eyes to the league, generating storylines, and creating fan engagement spikes that corporate ad buys can't match. All by refusing to play the PR game. When you zoom out, Sophie versus the WNBA isn't really about officiating calls or dollar amounts, it's about control. The league wants to control the narrative, the image, the tone. Sophie's proving that the future belongs to players who control their own narrative. And she's mastered that faster than anyone expected. So where does this go? If history's any guide, the fines won't stop, but neither will she. And whether the front office realizes it or not, each new penalty is just another chapter in the Sophie Cunningham saga, the underdog voice who challenged an entire league and somehow turned every punishment into power. At this point, you have to ask, who's playing who? Is the WNBA punishing Sophie? Or building the biggest star they've had in years?